Good evening. Welcome in. This is The Spread. I am Cameron Tarrant. That is SoCon John Hooper here on The Spread every Thursday and Sunday night. John, man, what a great weekend of football, especially here in the Palmetto state of South Carolina.
Yeah, it was awesome. We had the game of the year for for my opinion or money's worth. What a game, and what a really it's kind of funny because this has been such a weird year, but like almost probably 6 out of 10 Saturdays or whatever, I would guess that game day has picked a legitimately really good game.
Yeah. So John, we've got. We knew he was going to be calling in. He said on Facebook that he was going to call in the show. We've got Donald Barber, big Virginia Tech Hokie.
DB could have used an extra DB or two last night.
On the phone, ready to go. Donald, man, come on, tell me what happened. You predicted 44-36 Virginia Tech would take down the number 3 ranked Clemson Tigers. What happened there? What happened to those Hokies there, Donald?
Oh, I thought that game was tonight. They are playing tonight.
You got
that's USC and
yeah, you got that. You got the date mixed up. Y'all put the JV team out there last night, then, huh?
Well, I think many of our players got the wrong date definitely mixed up. And I tell you, as you've seen, I've had to eat a lot of crow.
Yeah.
And over the last 24 hours, and hey, I fully deserve it because I love to rev up the Clemson fan base. And
but the talent, I mean, they have talent on their team.
Yeah, they're very talented. And I'll give you, I'll say this, Donald. They had me scared there early on in that game. That first half was closer than I would have liked it to have been.
Well, there were definitely. This has been Tech season, is in a nutshell, is missed opportunities from the near interception that they had on Trevor Lawrence and Clemson's, where he bobbled it a little bit, and then in I believe it was the second half, Diablo got an interception and ended up turning around and giving the ball right back to him. So, and then you have the Hail Mary at the end of the first half where Blackshear catches the interception and then is about 3 inches from the ball crossing the plane.
Just to extend it.
Yeah, that was so close. I don't know, Donald. I don't know if you caught the end of the Coastal Carolina BYU game, but it was like it looked just like that same play essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did not see that, but yeah, it was. When I saw that, I was like, "That's Tech season in a nutshell." Is just missed opportunities, and then there's all kinds of controversy over exactly what's going on with Hendon Hooker. There's a lot of concern over his health because he was doing all that. I don't know if it was seizures or they, at the beginning of the year. Supposedly he had a bout with COVID and all. So he's, Virginia Tech and playing in cold is nothing new to him. So, part of me wonders if he's still having effects from that illness because I don't know. I mean, he was visibly like jerking around.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Burmeister, the injury to Burmeister. He looked good against Clemson early on, and then of course our third string, which would have done pretty good. He's already claimed for the transfer portal for next year.
Really?
Fourth string.
He's like, I'm not staying around here any longer.
Well, early on, Burmeister made some plays early on in that game. Had some nice throws. Made some plays with his legs as well. But I think the story with Tech's season this year is health concerns. Y'all have not been able to stay healthy.
No rhythm, able to be established.
I'll be the first. Yeah, and I'll tell you, I'll be the first to tell you, for 4.5 seasons, I've been the biggest Fuente supporter, and the last 3 games, I've had it. I always said give him 5 years. Here he is at the end of his 5th year, and the mismanagement of the clock at the end of the first half.
Mhm.
Here you have 3 timeouts. You've got a chance to at least get into field goal range, and then once again, Tech shoots itself in the foot by, I believe it was Hoffman, got a personal foul, which took him out of field goal range.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's just that constant. You had like 55 seconds to run down the field, and then the next thing you know, there's only like 2 seconds on the clock. And it's like, how, when you have 3 timeouts, how does that even happen? Herbert had a good game. He despite missing I believe 2 games, crossed the 1,000-yard mark. So in a shortened season,
he's a great back.
He's lost to injury. I mean, he's had an excellent year.
Yeah, he's explosive. That's for sure. He's really, really good. Donald, I don't know if you've kind of sensed this or not. Me and John were talking about it on Thursday, and I've gotten the feeling that this Virginia Tech team has sort of given up. The Liberty loss, I feel like the team's just checked out. And then to follow it up the very next week, and to have the lead against Miami late in the game, and then to lose that game in that fashion that they did, I felt like they just kind of checked out, especially in that Pittsburgh game. I mean, they did play inspired football the first half last night, but second half comes around, and again, I just saw that same Virginia Tech team, and just sort of seemed like they just checked out and gave up.
I agree. The Pittsburgh game, especially, that's the first time in years that I've seen a bunch of guys just cash it in and give up. I mean, that was a perfect example. People are questioning, where's Trey Turner? Their leading or their top wide receiver, didn't play last night either. So, there's been a lot of talk about, are some of these guys just playing a little bit of hooky? Are they legit hurt? Or has it come down to they've lost faith in the coach, and so they're almost self-sabotaging because they're already thinking, oh, I'm going to hit the transfer portal, or I'm going to go pro early next year. So, Trey Turner is one that leaves these little cryptic tweets on Twitter, and then like 30 minutes later, he'll take them down. So there's part of me that wonders if there's about 3-4 that are about to, declare either for the transfer portal or leave. And at the end of the day, that's why Fuente has to go, because this will just continue.
Yeah.
I got a lot of respect for the athletic director at Virginia Tech. I think he made a great hire with Mike Young in basketball. There were some young, coaches that were involved in that process. I think Steve Forbes at ETSU. So I know he made a good hire with basketball. I guess I got kind of a couple questions for Donald. I think it'd be appropriate to ask him about Shane Beamer possibly landing at South Carolina, and also where does Virginia Tech look if they do go in a coaching search type direction? Who would they look to?
Well, Shane Beamer's name, of course, was thrown around quite a bit until, what was it, today or yesterday? It was announced that he's the USC hire.
Yep.
There's a lot of mixed emotions about that around Hokie Nation, because he didn't exactly light up. Everybody saw potential in him when Frank, his dad, brought him in as a running backs coach. He had this pedigree of being a good recruiter, but our running backs under Billy Height had been phenomenal for years. You know, you had David Wilson, Ryan Williams, and a number of others that eventually went pro. Kevin Jones was another.
Yeah.
Then the Shane Beamer years hit, and all of a sudden we got guys that can't get out of their way, and so that was kind of a bust with him. So there's a lot of people that still remember that bad experience of Shane being there. And then, of course, Beamer himself stayed about 3 years too long at Virginia Tech. Yeah, I think that was the plan all along, was to
try to pass
Frank to coach through the season where they play Tennessee in Bristol for the biggest attendance ever. Because he did a lot of promotion for that.
Yeah.
And so, of course, he did so bad, he didn't even make it to that season, and then retired the season before. So, and then I think the plan was to turn over the reins to Shane, who at that time would have had like 3 years, you know, coaching experience at Tech. And, of course, none of that panned out with the way Beamer's last year went. So yeah, it's, you know, Whit Babcock, he's made great hires in wrestling, baseball. The women's basketball team is doing well. They're undefeated. And of course, Mike Young and Buzz Williams before him, those were both great hires. And Fuente had everything that there were no like warning signs. And I think Fuente just got hit between the emergence of the transfer portal and, of course, COVID this year, and then, of course, dealing with some bad apples from the Beamer years. I just don't think he was just strong enough to navigate. You know, what Dabo Sweeney could do it, but Fuente can't, you know. That was just too tough to handle, I think. And I think his offensive coordinator, Cornelson, needs to go. if Fuente doesn't, at least the offensive coordinator does. But, you know,
I always wondered, Cameron, and this might be something you wondered about too, is like, how did it all go down with Bud Foster? You know, like,
well, you know, I'm honestly, you know, when Frank left and retired, I was actually pretty shocked that Bud ended up staying on as long as he did. Donald, I don't know if you know anything, you know, about that situation and why Bud ended up staying on and everything, but that was really shocking. But what was even more shocking was, you know, Bud Foster, known for his defenses, and over the last few years of his you know, tenure there at Virginia Tech, those defenses were not very good.
No, they weren't. And so I was shocked that I thought that they would have done a clean sweep, but you know, the thing is people hang on to the past a little too much, and you'll even hear these ESPN commentators talk about the Beamer ball.
Yeah.
Well, Beamer ball hasn't existed for about 10 years now, because people learned how to defend against Beamer ball. They learned that, hey, let's make our kicker look like, you know, they hit him and they'll draw, you know, all of a sudden we started drawing a lot of penalties because kickers learned how to get themselves into the defensive players and draw that penalty. So all of a sudden we had to back off of our attacks. And so, yeah, Beamer ball became just a thing of the past. And they're, you know, same thing with the lunch pail defense.
Yeah.
yeah.
You know,
For the last 4 or 5 years either.
Yeah, going back to Shane Beamer, Donald, correct me if I'm wrong, John, and correct me if I'm wrong. I don't believe Shane was ever a coordinator under his father at Tech, correct?
He was just in charge of the running backs. He
So-
was basically a running backs coach.
That's what I thought. And John and I were talking about it before the show. You know, going back to South Carolina obviously making this decision to hire Shane Beamer, a guy who up until Oklahoma had never had a coordinator's job.
Mm-hmm.
It's striking though that he spent all those years under his father and his dad never promoted him.
Yeah, I know. And keep in mind, Shane played at Tech, but he was a long snapper. I mean, he just was never. His dad trained him for one specialty, which something would be hard to screw up, and that is to long snap the ball.
Yeah,
and that, that's what got him on the Tech team. I love
that to Louisiana snapper.
yeah. I was gonna say that.
Super nice guy. I tell my son all the time I want to train him to either be like a kicker or a long something, minuscule and specialized that not a lot of people. Everybody wants to be a running back or a wide receiver, but I'm like, son, let's work on being like a tight end or a long snapper or something like that, and maybe we can get you a scholarship that way someday. But yeah, there's Tech's defense. The poor guys played their hearts out, and then when you start going 3 and out, the defense is going to start sucking wind real quick. And a team like Clemson is gonna eat that up, and they did.
Well, I'm sure Clemson's offense got a butt chewing at halftime because they were not in rhythm, and they were not playing well at all in that first half. And I'll give a lot of credit to Tech's defense. They did some things that I think confused Trevor and in the offensive line a little bit as well. Couldn't get the run game going with ETN early on and everything. Donald, I know you mentioned yesterday that you wanted a pinky promise that nobody would gloat or boast. I'm sure a lot of people have broken their pinky promises on you, haven't they?
Yeah, they absolutely have. I mean, I was getting messages. I don't even think y'all slept last night. I was getting messages late into the hours, and first thing is morning.
I'm sure
messages were blowing up,
and I'm sure my brother was one of those, wasn't he, Donald?
Oh yeah, he's good with his little gifs and memes and all that stuff. But you know what? It's all in good fun.
It is, absolutely.
Hey, I put myself out there to get it, and y'all give it back to me. That's for sure.
One thing that you did post about though this week, John, is the picture of the Clemson flag on your house. I'd love for you to tell that story a little bit.
All right. Well, I believe that was what was it? 2016. I think we played. It wasn't 2017. So it was either 2015 or 20.
I think 2016. I think was the ACC Championship game that year.
Yeah. So my dogs were going crazy. I heard what appeared to be a ladder hit my gutter out front, and I heard footsteps up there, and by the time I get to the door, and one guy is holding the doorknob so that I can't go out of the house, while the other is up there tying the flag, and so
That's
that
awesome.
flag stayed up there for probably 3 or 4 days until they
so you could get up there and yank it down, huh?
Yes. That's awesome. That's awesome.
They knew I wouldn't go up there, so and I've had them, my driveway and everything's been covered in chalk with Clemson stuff. And, thankfully that washes off easily.
Yeah.
The other thing is,
definitely give it.
I was going to say that the Clemson Virginia Tech basketball game could be a really, really good game this year. I think both teams are picked a little bit lower than they should have been in the preseason.
When they said, I heard them say that Virginia Tech was like picked 11th in the ACC, and I was like, how? They're about to beat the number 3 team in the country.
Yeah,
and but that's with, Jalen Cone wasn't even playing this season yet.
Right.
I saw where he's cleared to play now.
Yeah.
So Mike Young is doing phenomenal, and I tell you, UVA right now is not exactly burning it up. They had that huge upset against San Francisco, the Dons of San Francisco, which I had fun with that one.
Who actually, like, in like the 40s won like a national championship or something. Like, it's
Hey, Donald, be glad that Virginia Tech did not lose to VMI the other night, because I was ready to give it to you the other night.
Oh yeah, I had, and I'm sure every UVA fan was ready to give it to me too. And I knew, those are the games that I don't know. Those are definitely the games that scare you, like the Liberties that come in there.
Yeah.
But I knew Tech would pull it out. I just hate that they waited until the final 2 minutes to do it.
Yeah.
But I know y'all got a lot of games to talk about in this, but I appreciate I appreciate y'all giving it back to me a little bit.
Oh, absolutely.
And so,
it
was a good game.
Yeah.
Now, I do have to ask you one thing as Clemson fans, because even Tech fans were upset about this last night. What were your thoughts on them kind of interrupting the game, interviewing the Notre Dame quarterback?
Man, that was frustrating. That was really frustrating. Like, I don't understand why. And like, they were asking him all these questions that he really didn't need to answer. Like,
to his credit, he did as best he could. I mean,
yeah, that was bizarre. I don't understand why they did that either. Real quick, Donald, what in the heck happened with the sprinklers? Was that was that Fuente's attempt of trying to mess with the offense right there?
I don't know, but I'll be honest with you. I missed that part of the game. And so I started getting texts from Clemson fans saying, really? The sprinklers? Y'all are trying to win like this? And freeze our feet and all this?
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Down.
There's a groundskeeper that's probably out of a job today.
Yeah,
because of that mishap.
That would be so embarrassing.
So funny. All right, well, we'll let you go, Donald. I appreciate you coming on and taking it like a champ after last night. It was a great game. First half was really, really good, and then second half it just got away from Tech there on a couple of plays and got out of hand. But one last question, Donald. You got one game left. It's against your arch rivals. What's your pick?
If everybody on Tech shows up ready to play next week, we will win that game. The Hendon Hookers.
Yeah.
Burton Blackshear getting a good amount of
that game is it at Virginia Tech, right?
Yeah, that game's at Blacksburg.
It is, yeah.
I think that's right.
Nothing anymore. I mean, it used to be something to play there, but this year's, we're losing more than winning there. So, it's going to be a true test as to if this team has 100% given up, or whether they still got fight in them. They might all get together and say, "Hey, let's just throw in the towel so that we can get these coaches out of here." I hate to think that.
Yeah.
That's the mentality in today's world. I hate to say it, and I do think Tech can and will win. I'm not going to trash talk this week. I've been humbled enough in 2020, so I'm going to be laying low, and I'll actually be in Rhode Island flying back that day.
Wow.
So there's a good chance I won't even be able to see the game unless I'm in an airport somewhere on a layover. So anyway, I'm praying because, gosh, I can't catch any more crap this year. I need 2020 to just ride out. So I don't need those UVA fans all revved up too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Donald, I appreciate you coming on, man. Good luck next week, and good luck in basketball. It's going to be a good year for Hokies basketball, I have a feeling.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it big time.
All right, man. I appreciate it. You have a good one.
All right, see you. Bye.
See ya.
Sorry, I lost volume there for a minute, so I had to refresh it.
Oh, no, you're good. Donald Barber joining us, big Virginia Tech Hokies fan, taking it like a champ after the loss last night, coming on and talking a little football and everything, talking about his Virginia Tech Hokies. A great game in the second half, it was. I mean, first half, Tech really played. I felt like they played inspired. They were sort of amped up, and their defense played well in that first half. Offense even made some plays in the first half as well, but second half came out and it was a different story. So Clemson now officially booking its ticket going to the ACC Championship, where they will face Notre Dame yet again in that rematch. So if Clemson, hopefully they'll be a whole lot more healthier than they were the game a week ago.
Yeah. And I feel like, I was real going back to what they had the quarterback. They asked him some weird questions when during the Clemson broadcast. I mean, like, they're asking him about Clemson, and I'm sure he hadn't really, other than maybe looked at film from the last game they played him. They kind of asked him, like, I felt like some questions that may have caught him off guard, and it was just a weird view.
Yeah, it was strange. I mean, why are you interviewing a quarterback that has nothing to do with that football game during the middle of the broadcast? Hey, I didn't make any sense. But Clemson with a nice win last night over Virginia Tech. Another team here in South Carolina, John, had a huge game. College Game Day was down in Conway for the Coastal BYU game. That game put together the last minute. On Thursday, they decided they were going to play that game, and man, what a great one! An all-time classic played down there, and Coastal gets a huge program-building win against a really good BYU football team.
Hats off to Coach Chadwell.
Absolutely.
And really, Coach Stagg's defense, who played an outstanding game to. Slow down a BYU offense that had been just scoring points like they were going out of style.
I mean, we talked about it on Thursday, and I picked BYU because I looked at that BYU offense. They were scary coming into that game, and give Coastal and Chad Staggs, the defense coordinator, a lot of credit because they just completely shut them down. Especially
how about the D line? Number 94, I think it was it. Is his name Glover? I can't remember, but the guy was absolutely in Zach Wilson's grill all night.
Yes,
literally and figuratively. But I think they got to, in a way, they sort of intimidated Zach Wilson. And I'm not condoning what happened at the end of the half, but I will say that it changed the game. It kind of got his mind. I think that it kind of got BYU's mind in a different place, maybe.
Yeah, and I actually missed what happened there at the half. If you want to go into that.
Well, so he has incredible arm strength. So he threw it from like his old 35 to like the 1, and it was intercepted, and a guy makes a nice return. He cuts back across the field, and so two defensive linemen, number 94 being one of them, decide to like double team the quarterback, and basically, I don't know if you've ever seen it, like sometimes it happens with offensive linemen where they'll lay on top of, I guess if there's a turnover or something, lay on top of the quarterback, which is legal, but they were kind of slinging him around a little bit and trying to sling him, put his head into the ground or whatever. I don't think it was done with the intent to like hurt the guy, but I think it was done with the intent to like send a message.
Yeah,
which I think it did.
Yeah.
And so in that way, I can understand it a little bit, but I mean, it was a little bit heated, because two teams kind of, came out and had some words for each other. But I feel like from that point in the game that it helped Coastal more than it really benefited BYU because they were just protecting their quarterback. But interestingly enough, the Sunbelt refs didn't go back and look at it because I think the color commentator said that they could go back and look at something, at halftime to see if there was anything there, any penalty or whatever. But I almost wonder if BYU said something like earlier in the game because
there was a lot of jawing. There was a lot of chippiness in that game.
And I wonder, early on, Coastal wasn't really like that. And then all of a sudden, they were just like, everything was like that. So I wonder if there wasn't something said, at some point. But it's a game that I wish could be played. I know that I think Coastal is going to BYU. Is it next year? Or I know there's a game in the future.
A good one.
Shout out to both ADs for able to make that game happen, and boy, it was a great game.
It was a great, and in the second half was as a defensive battle. Only 9 points between the two teams scored in that second half, and what a finish that game! I referenced it when we were talking to Donald. BYU, they're down by 5. They've got the ball late. They're actually driving down the field. They've made a couple good plays, get into Coastal territory. Zach Wilson throws a one right over the middle, and
speed.
The guy caught it, and I thought he was in. I did. I thought the game was over. I thought BYU was going to easily get in, but man,
actually smart by Chad Staggs to put all his defensive linebackers and DBs back on the goal line.
And what a great play by the true freshman linebacker to wrap the guy up, the receiver up, and just pull him backwards. Stopped him like a half a yard short of the goal line to win.
I was sure that he was going to throw to the end zone there.
Yeah.
Instead of throwing short. But then, you have so many guys back, there's not really anywhere to throw the ball. You know what I mean?
And even still, he almost scores.
Yeah. He still almost scored, and it would have been some tears shed in Conway had he been.
There would have been.
But I think a great ball game, and hats off to. Coastal Carolina. I'm not saying that BYU didn't deserve to win the game, but the type season Coastal's had, they've played a tougher schedule, picked last in their division in the Sun Belt. They've done everything asked of them. So
it's a great story. It's a great story. And I hope the playoff committee, I'm not saying that they're going to get in the playoff. I don't think that
they deserve a New Year's Day bowl.
But they do deserve a very good bowl game. But they also deserve. I think they deserve a top 10 ranking this week. Mm-hmm. I think they've proved it on the field by some of the teams they've beaten. They've beat a really good Louisiana team already. They've beaten App State. They just beat a really good BYU team. Mm-hmm. I think
Sunbelt is a good.
It's a good conference, and Coastal's got one more game with Troy next weekend, and then they have the rematch with Louisiana, which that one's going to be a great ball game, John. That rematch is going to be down in Conway. The first one was in Lafayette, if I'm correct.
They won on a field. I think it was a 34-31. I think they won on a field goal late.
30-27, the final
30-27.
And a great match early on this year.
To win it by Coastal,
if
I'm not mistaken. Great football game down in Louisiana. And I think the commentators were then saying that it could be a preview of the championship game that you would see in the Sun Belt this year.
Absolutely.
Even if you go back to Friday night, there's another good football game in Appalachian in Louisiana. But what a crazy
Hurt you though. I mean, I'm sure you shed a few tears, didn't you, on Friday night?
Happy for Coach Napier and Lamb to finally get that proverbial monkey off their back and get a win. I think App State was 8-0 all time, not against those guys, but against Louisiana Lafayette. So.
Well, it was funny because during the game, they referenced the Billy Napier play when he was at Furman that we talked about. They referenced that, showed the clip,
and then
the very next play, some like weird snap over the head.
Yeah, and you're like, like something like awakened some, curse or whatever. And so then you're like, okay, so my snapper, literally comes down to a situation when we texted about it a little bit. Okay, my snapper's not getting the ball to the punter at all. Like
3 snaps over the punter's head.
So what do you do? Okay, so you have a few options. I mean, you could have quick kicked it, which, you could have snapped at the quarterback and quick kicked it, which would have been fine. Or you could take a safety. I mean, there aren't a lot of decisions that you can do there. And
honestly, I mean, it ended up working out, obviously, for Louisiana. I thought the pooch kick, the quick kick, would have been the smart play.
Initially, that's what I thought they would do.
I mean, you're up by 5 with little time left to go. Pooch kick it, try to pin them down as deep, make them drive the length of the field. But ultimately, the decision to run through the back of the end zone and just take the safety to make it a 3-point game didn't end up hurting them.
And we the one thing I was thinking about is the wind must have just been horrendous because I wasn't there. So it probably looks a lot different to us.
Yeah.
It had to be awful.
And the conditions were just miserable there on Friday night.
So I think they were thinking at worst, their defense, we'll put the game in the hands of our defense.
Yeah.
At worst, they'll have a field goal attempt, which they did. And the weather, it's 50-50 in that weather, whether, the field goal's good or not.
Well, we were texting about it on Friday night. The play clock, the clock management by App State on that final drive they had a chance. They had enough time that they could have gone down the field and put it in the end zone, or at least made it a little closer of a field goal attempt. But they just
a better throw. On one of those from Thomas, I think that's a touchdown I think it was Virgil in the back of the end zone right there. He just couldn't keep a foot in. He was like 6 inches from being. That was 6 inches from being a touchdown.
Well, and this didn't seem like they had any sort of they had no sense of urgency to get up to the ball, snap it, and get a play.
That was bizarre too, and they didn't have so they had one timeout when they got it back.
Yeah,
and they're running the ball first of all, which I didn't quite understand on one of those plays. So and then
dive.
I think the weird thing about that game is I almost think they went to the pass too early when they should have run the ball, and then they were running the ball when they should have been throwing it.
All right, John's frozen up, but we're live here on YouTube as well as on the Podbean app audio, but we are live over on streaming over on YouTube right now. John kind of froze up on me there for a minute. You good, John?
Yeah, I'm good. I can't tell on my end if I freeze up, so you'll just have to tell me.
That's all right. I can feel we're good. So what were you saying there?
No, I was just saying there's a lot to be questioned, and not only from that game, but some of the coaching decisions from the entire season for App State. I go back to the Coastal game. Why is Zach Thomas, throwing that ball? And I don't think it's necessarily his fault. I think it's kind of both
poor play call
in general.
Yeah.
Why are we throwing it downfield when I felt like we were running the ball good enough with the lead at that point with 4 minutes left to hold it?
That's just it's poor just play calling by the coaching staff in both of those games, really. But Louisiana, I mean, they're good, man, but they finally get a win over App State, which
But it should be a great Sunbelt.
Yeah.
The top 3 in the Sunbelt this year were really
They are
could have won. They were all really good.
really good, and but we'll
App State
definitely
still got a score to settle with Georgia Southern next week. So.
Yeah, App State, not all is lost. They could beat their arch nemesis and then try to get a good bowl game.
Yeah,
at the end of the
hopefully.
year. So hopefully, yeah. So all not lost for App State there, John. Just no repeating of the Sun Belt champions this year.
Hey, we had to give it up at some point, I guess.
And honestly, I mean, who better to possibly pass the reins to than Coastal Carolina?
Yeah, I mean, at least it wasn't like Georgia Southern or like somebody like that.
Yeah.
Relinquish the division title to or whatever.
Yeah.
So I will say App State to me had probably the toughest conference. I don't know. I haven't looked back at it, but who had to face. I mean, you didn't know that before the season, but Coastal and Lafayette before the season, we knew we faced Lafayette, but we didn't know how good Coastal was going to be. So, it was definitely a tough season. Even the games, we won were not easy. The Troy game was kind of a surprise. I thought probably we played our best game of the year.
Yeah. Yeah, y'all, and the Campbell game, I go back to that one. That was a weird game. I know it's not a conference game, but
how about Arkansas State yesterday?
Yeah,
the kid had 309 yards receiving and 10 catches and 4 touchdowns or something crazy.
I don't know for who they play.
I don't even remember it. I think maybe but you talk about
UL Monroe. No, UL Monroe.
Okay. No, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's why.
I want to say that the guy had not caught a touchdown pass all year coming into the game.
Corey Rucker, 9 catches, 310 for 4 touchdowns.
Yeah. That's a day.
Yeah. That's video game numbers right there.
Speaking of video game numbers, did we mention the Buffalo kid? Did we mention that guy?
No, we did not talk about that on Thursday last week.
He's rushed for 710 yards in 2 games.
He had 8 rushing touchdowns last weekend.
So he had 300 yards the week before and then broke his own record, by rushing for 400 and whatever the next.
And 8 rushing touchdowns in 1 game.
He literally had 12 touchdowns rushing in 2 weeks.
It's absolutely incredible. No, we completely forgot to talk about that on Thursday.
I mean, he should be considered for some type of
absolutely.
That's just ridiculous. But yeah, I was gonna make sure I mentioned him tonight. That you talk about craziness.
Yeah, that's insane. I don't think I've ever seen that before. So
I think the 8 touchdowns is more insane than the 400 yards rushing.
Yeah, because I could see.
Who does that?
I could see 400 yards rushing on you just have a crazy night, but 8 rushing touchdowns, that just isn't. It's almost you remember the Washington State quarterback that had 9 passing touchdowns last year in that one game and they still lost.
And they still lost, yes. Sort of like Greenville basketball. And,
that was
play Bradley tomorrow.
That was the greatest segment of all time last week, or on Thursday, talking about Greenville basketball. That was so funny.
I think I'm going to print that box score out and frame it. There's some things you should just frame as a sports fan. That's it. I mean,
not if you're a Greenville College fan, though. You don't want any part of that box score.
No, I mean, yeah. I don't really know. I don't know much about coaching in basketball, but I might could hold somebody to less than 170 points a game.
That's awesome. We mentioned it when we were talking to Donald. Big news coming today. South Carolina going to hire Shane Beamer to be their head coach. We both kind of think it's a puzzling hire ourselves. Maybe it works out. Hopefully for South Carolina fans, it does work out for them. I just think there were better options on the table for them than and ultimately they ended up going with who they believe is going to be their guy, and Shane Beamer, who has never been a head coach and It's only been
doesn't have coordinator experience.
He's only been a coordinator for a couple of years now.
Yeah,
Oklahoma, so.
But and what ideas is he gonna bring? What assistants is he gonna hire? Like what's his whole philosophy? I'll be interested to
Exactly.
Because part of what Dabo and why he's been successful is he treated Clemson more like a business organization than necessarily hiring football coaches, if that makes sense. Like obviously he's hiring guys that know X's and O's, but it's like like the way it's set up, there's no like micromanagement of each guy has his responsibility, they're paid well, and it all works together, in a cohesive fashion. And that's different than a lot of programs. They just go out and try to hire the guy that is, a great X's and O's guy. But like I think he judged it more on like how do these guys relate to players to start with,
Well, what I'll be interested in seeing is what kind of staff he ends up putting together.
Mm-hmm.
Who will he end up keeping some of the guys that are currently there, like Mike Bobo? Will he throw him out the door and bring somebody else in? Who's he going to get? Well, and also too, and I was talking to a buddy of mine who's a South Carolina fan. It's going to take several years. I think 2, 3, 4 years. They're going to have to do a complete culture change down there in Columbia.
And part of that's going to involve, for some of that is getting rid of the bad apples, or if there are any in the program. And a lot of coaches will say, well, that takes care of itself because you come in there and you establish discipline, and there's some guys that are willing to do it and others that aren't, but it kind of takes care of itself,
Well, the big thing and what we're seeing right now is you've got guys opting out and transferring or entering the transfer portal now. And we've already seen there's been a couple of, recruits that have already decommitted from South Carolina.
Yeah. Which is, and that's maybe his strong suit, is the recruiting aspect of it, because, he was responsible for bringing in a lot of those guys that were a part of so many successful South Carolina teams. Maybe he can sway them back the other way, which is really hard now because COVID's made the restrictions on recruiting even weirder. Like the contact period and non-contact period, and they're all basically Zoom calls. So now you're looking at having to hire guys that recruit guys, but recruit them well over a Zoom call, which some guys that are very good at X's and O's don't always come across with personality.
That's a tough situation too. But South Carolina finished up their 2020 season by just getting butt whooped by Kentucky last night, 41-18. The final score up there in Lexington. I mean, for South Carolina fans, they can at least be grateful this season's over with now.
Yeah, and they can. The one good thing about it is they've got a little bit more time at the end here to kind of make the hire and not have to be sort of rushed. The one thing COVID has helped with in that way is like the recruiting periods are longer, so you don't have to like push to get like those guys in February. They can sign later. You know what I mean? In that way, it's made it a little bit easier. But I think first comes the staff, and I think that's the most important part of anything they do right now. And
I completely agree. So
Shane Beamer's got his work cut out for him.
Yeah, he does. It's gonna be interesting to see how it all works out with Shane Beamer. Again, South Carolina making that decision today. Hopefully that's their guy. The big thing for them is they were trying to find an equivalent to Dabo. You know, they're trying to find that younger coach, that guy that can compete.
Diamond in the rough, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see how it works out for them. There were a lot of other good games and things like that around the country yesterday, John. You know, I took a look. How about Indiana, man? They lose their starting quarterback last week. The heart and soul of their team, and they go out there and
their defense looks
their
so good.
defense is so good, but they played with some real heart yesterday. Got a big win over a good Wisconsin team. Just
held it.
Yeah, they held on. Just a great story in itself too. Indiana, the season that they're having.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like, this is the best team they've had since like 1987, maybe.
Yeah,
I think what they said, and you know, I that's one team that you would have thought maybe we talked about it like might get down on itself, but they didn't, because I think it has a lot to do with their head coach. Is it Tom Allen? I guess.
Yep.
He's just a very good motivator, sort of like Dabo. Like, how would you not want to play for that guy? You know, and even like that the fact that, you know, they lost their quarterback, they still look pretty good on offense. I mean, it wasn't the same, but like they still have guys like Hendershot making the play in the end zone. You know? They still got some weapons, so
they've got talent there for sure. So a big win for Indiana. You know, imagine what would have been if they win that game at Ohio State. You know, where we could be talking about Indiana. They could be in the top 4 right now if they win that game.
Like, if they don't get behind the 8 ball a little bit in that game, they could have very well won it. So.
Yeah, it could have been a completely different story for them, but still a great season for the Hoosiers. How about Texas A&M? A little slow start against Auburn down in Auburn, down at Jordan-Hare, and there for a while it looked like the Tigers might actually be able to pull off the upset. And I text you at one point, Auburn actually taking the lead, and I kind of made the joke that this is just what Jimbo Fisher's been notorious for. Having good teams
late in the season,
blow it late in the season, and thought maybe that was going to, kind of be a similar situation. And give credit to Texas A&M, they ended up finding a way and getting a win to close out their regular season.
Yeah, and happy to see that. For Texas A&M, they've had some good football teams. I think. The one thing about it is the leverage they have, obviously, is the win over Florida if you're looking at one-loss teams. Should somebody make a, mistake or I'll really be interested to see what they'll do with, assuming Notre Dame loses the ACC Championship game. What they'll do with a one-loss Notre Dame versus a one-loss Texas A&M. What I think they should do is reward Notre Dame for beating Clemson over Texas A&M for beating Florida.
Yeah, it'd be interesting though, but because then what if Florida goes on, beats Alabama? You're going to have both of those teams get in. Florida and Alabama going to get in.
I just don't see that happening, though.
I don't either. Alabama just looks scary. To me, they're just so good. Devontae Smith had like 4 touchdown catches yesterday. Mac Jones was completed his first 12 passes and had like 250 yards after with 12.
I do think Florida can score some points just because of Trask and
their defense and
the weapons they have on offense. So I do think they'll score on Alabama. I just don't think that. No one's been able to stop Alabama so far.
Yeah,
I don't see them doing it, and it's kind of funny to flip on the LSU game late last night.
Yeah,
like what 50-something to 15 or whatever, or
55-17, the final score.
Yeah,
in Baton Rouge.
Just like, wow, this is just bizarro world right here. So, just how far LSU is just fallen in 1 year. I mean, I know they had lost a lot. We both knew that, but I would have never thought that.
Yeah, this has been a historic. You know, LSU had a historic year last year with what they were able to do offensively and everything like that. This year's been historic because they are absolutely they I think in history the worst defending national champion.
Yes,
like
3-5, and
like it's bad.
And I'm not even sure who would be even like. I know. I mean, Michigan in '98 was still pretty good. I mean, I'm trying to think of a national champion that was not just off next year.
But I mean that 09, you know, Florida wins it in 08. They don't in 09. I mean, they still went to the SEC Championship that year. I mean, they were still good. Florida State in 14 after their champion.
Yeah,
they were still okay. I mean, they
still won 7. If I'm not mistaken, 7 or 8 games.
Yeah.
The next year.
So maybe Auburn's that Auburn team from 2010 to 2011. That
right.
2011 Auburn team was awful.
That could be because the 11 Auburn team was awful. Yeah.
So maybe
that was actually Chizik got fired. Let's see.
That year.
Yeah. They were so bad.
Didn't they lose to UL Monroe or somebody in the regular season?
To start the year, they did.
Yes.
UL Monroe, yes. Because I actually knew the SID that went to be he was actually at USC Upstate and then took the job at UL Monroe. And I texted him. I was like, I bet you could have never envisioned going from a school with not football to a school that beats the defending national champion.
That was an abysmal year for Auburn fans. Another team that's just been on a bad decline here lately, Oklahoma State. What's going on with the Cowboys? I mean, this is a team that we both thought, it could be. I mean, after the way they lost to TCU yesterday, I mean, just crazy. I mean, this is a team that we thought were going to win the whole conference this year. They beat a really good Iowa State team earlier on in the year. They have all these good wins. And then they lost to Texas, and it's like the wheels just fell off down there in Stillwater.
Max Duggan with 3 touchdown passes yesterday for TCU. Had a really good game. TCU, a little bit disappointing this year, but put it
a weird year for them.
Put it together. And Gary Patterson's not really had. We talked about this at the beginning of the year. He's not had that. In the mid 2010s and stuff, we were talking about him for potential good hires, and it's not really being mentioned now. I know, for instance, when South Carolina made the hire for Muschamp, a lot of people thought maybe they should go after Gary Patterson, or maybe South Carolina did, and he turned it down. But
could have,
I think his stock's gone down significantly, and but Mike Gundy's, with the expectations coming into this year, and I know they had some injuries, but still, was it Spencer Sanders was still a pretty good quarterback. I mean, he's with the way the defense was playing early in the season, and the running backs they had and who they returned, you thought they had an outside shot to make the playoffs. I mean, you and I both thought that.
Yeah, it's so strange. Like I said, they lose to Texas, then they just get destroyed by Oklahoma, and then to lose this game, and now they're out of it now. I mean, Oklahoma is probably going to be that team that's going to. Actually, I think Oklahoma is going to be the team that's going to
be Texas and Iowa State for the Big 12 title, right?
No, it's going to be Iowa State, Oklahoma in a rematch.
That's right.
So.
So that will be
a fun one, though.
It's funny how Oklahoma things always end up working out for them in that conference.
Yeah, they helped themselves too, because I think they've ended up winning 6 in a row now.
Yeah, well, Rattler got on he's played really well. That's probably somebody that has been overlooked just because they started so shaky. I mean,
yeah.
But the past 5 or 6 weeks, he's played really well. And that offense has looked really, like as good as it was last year, for much of the season. So they're kind of an under the radar team. I'll be interested. And I mean, obviously neither of those teams are going to make the playoff, but I'll still be interested. You'd like to see what would happen if Iowa State won the title.
The whole thing, yeah.
Yeah, what would, and let's say Coastal beats Lafayette for the second time, would that get Coastal a little bit more respect because Lafayette beat Iowa State?
Possibly. It'd be fun. It would be see Coastal versus Iowa State in a bowl game. I think that'd be
that would be cool. That would be actually be a really good game.
It would be a good game. Real quick, before we move on, and we're going to kind of do our top 10 rankings in football, we got to talk about Marshall.
We can't let that one go.
We can't let that one go. Marshall had been undefeated and had been rolling over people. They did. They got
Marshall got riced. That's so odd.
Rice is just awful. I don't understand.
Jeez.
20
Rice, literally, they were like, the SID, literally, that was their first road win over a top 20, maybe a top 25, but I know a top 15 team since 1991.
Well, I know it was their first top 25 wins in 20 something years.
Right. And so since 1997 or something. Yeah. And their first win on the road, they were 0-32 coming into Joan C. Edwards Stadium. And Marshall had never in their history of football, at that stadium, had never been goose-egged.
Yeah.
Right. Rice, withheld the gravy from Marshall.
And this is a Rice team that loses to Middle Tennessee and North Texas this year.
It was funny because I was listening to the end of that game because, the game with that, it actually became more interesting than the Furman College of Charleston basketball game at that point because, the announcers were there was probably 7 minutes left, and they're just Marshall can't do anything. Oh, this is going to be such a huge. It was still conceivable that they could come back, but they're just already mailing it in because poor quarterback throws 5 interceptions yesterday, and it's like my dad said. No matter who's going to be able to overcome
that
to win a game, and I guess credit them Rice's defense, man. They were physical. It's just shocking that they barely beat. They had one win coming into the game.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. All right, John. So obviously the playoff. We've had a couple playoff polls now, and everything. Want to kind of go through and do our top 10s, where we would rank everybody up at the top of the polls, and kind of go through that, see if we kind of differ with the playoff selection committee or with the AP polls, things like that. So let's start, John. Who do you have at number 10?
Well, this was kind of tough because, I went back and forth with the team I put there. But I actually went with Coastal. I think they deserve, I think they were 18th last week. So I kind of pushed them up, and I think they deserve a top 10 ranking. I debated on actually putting them 9th and Iowa State 10th, but I actually put Iowa State 9th and Coastal 10. Who did you go with?
All right, so you said you had Iowa State at 9. So you put Coastal 10. I actually went Indiana at number 9.
Did you? I went there. I went a little higher.
I went with the Hoosiers. Impressed with the win yesterday.
That was a great
over Wisconsin. They lose their quarterback last week, and you thought maybe I didn't foresee them winning that game against Wisconsin without him, and they found a way. They gutted out a win, and just incredible there. So I actually went with the Hoosiers, and then I put Coastal at number 9. I actually moved them up to number 9.
Yeah.
I think the performance that they played defensively against a really good BYU offense.
Yeah, and like I said,
they've got some good wins this year, John, and
they do.
I think they deserve to be in the top 10. I do.
Yeah, I do too. Like, and I said, like, I had trouble with the whole because I think it'll change if Coastal beats Lafayette, then I'll put Coastal above Iowa State, if that makes sense.
And so you've got Iowa State. You said
I've got them 9th.
All right. So who do you have at number 8 then?
Indiana.
Okay.
I put Indiana 8 because of how well they played Ohio State when they could have thrown in the towel, so to speak, and then going on the road to win at Camp Randall. And I know Penn State's not good, Michigan's not very good, but to win those games when they've been so hard in the past, I feel like they kind of should be rewarded for that as well,
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, Indiana's been one heck of a story this year, along with Coastal. You said you had Iowa State at 9. I actually put Iowa State up at number 8. I just think they've been so good ever since the loss to Louisiana opening the year. They've been just one of the best teams in the country, I feel like. And yeah, they have the loss to Oklahoma State. That game was on the road in Stillwater. And at the time, Oklahoma State was playing as well as anybody in the country too. So, I don't really hurt. I personally don't think that loss hurts them. Maybe it does now with the way that Oklahoma State has sort of finished up the year, but
just kind of, yeah.
I mean, what they did to West Virginia yesterday, and that's not a bad West Virginia defense, and they just dominated.
They destroyed them. Yeah,
they did. What? So,
as I flipped it over, it was like 35-0, and I was like, "Geez,"
Yeah, I really like the Cyclones and the job that Matt Campbell has done there in Ames. John, I may surprise you here with my number 7, but I actually put the Aggies at number 7. I've got Texas A&M.
Wow. I'm going to surprise you too because I know they started their season late, but I think Southern Cal's pretty good. So I actually put them 7th. Now I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but I do think they're top 10 good in the country. And, we'll see tonight. I mean, they got another test tonight, I guess. So I had them 7th. But yeah, I'm a little shocked you had Texas A&M that low. But on the same hand, they weren't all that impressive yesterday. I mean,
here's why I put A&M at 7. All right, so I know it's weird. They have the head-to-head win over Florida, their only loss is to a really good Alabama team. I get it, but I've not been impressed with them, and I feel like they haven't really, had that big other than Florida. But they didn't really. I mean, that was a close game. Florida had so many chances to win that game as well in a high-scoring shootout.
And it was early. It was an early season game, so to speak.
It was, and I just feel like Texas A&M there's still too many question marks I have on that offense. When Kellen Mond is not playing his best, they are not very good on the offensive side of the ball. And they struggled. You saw it against LSU last week, and man, that LSU defense is not very good, and they only scored 20 points against LSU.
Yeah.
Like, I just think there's too many question marks with the offense. The defense is good, but I don't think they're deserving of that 5th spot right now. I think the only reason the playoff committee has put them that high is because of the win of Florida.
Probably, yeah. I mean, I actually had them. I had them 5th, and I had Florida 6th. So, I just put them ahead of Florida because they beat them.
I mean, I get it. But, I do.
At that point, it's like. I kind of agree with you, but I guess if it came down to it, that's probably what they're going to look at. because they had that win over them.
Is the head-to-head. Yeah, I mean, I get that. I just personally don't think right now. I think Florida
if they played again, I think Florida would probably win now.
Yeah, right now I think Florida is by far the better team. I do, especially on offense, and I think Florida's defense has gotten a whole lot better too as the year's gone on.
And part of me kind of wishes they could play that game again because I'd rather Florida be higher, but Florida, the thing that killed them in that game is just their defense. Like the one thing they've been able to overcome sort of the whole year by scoring points and having so many weapons is that, offensively, but they struggle a little bit in the second half of that game. If you remember, turning the ball over and stuff against Texas A&M. And, that was probably the best game Texas A&M played this year, too.
Yeah. All right, you got the Florida at 6. I actually went with Cincinnati. The Bearcats, I feel like, aren't getting the love that they deserve. They've been good this year. That defensive front is monstrous.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're probably one of the best front four in the country, and they shut opponents down. Now, granted, they don't have the real big schedule. They do have some nice wins, though, this year. They got a really good comeback win over UCF the other week, and I believe they beat Memphis a few weeks ago, SMU, a couple of teams like that. So, yeah, I really like this Cincinnati team. I think they deserve a lot more credit than they get. Have gotten. Desmond Ridder at quarterback is very dangerous, and
be nice if Ohio State could schedule them.
Yeah, it really would be. That'd be a great matchup
just
for
to
sure.
Have, just say Cincinnati would have been a lot better opponent than Michigan State was this past week.
And speaking of Ohio State, I actually have them at 5. And here's why. It's not because I don't think they're good. I think they are really, really good. They've only played 5 games. I mean, they just don't have right now, Florida, we got teams out here that have played 10, 11 games already. I mean, the possibility that if Michigan were to cancel next weekend.
Well, and the Big Ten was the one that put that
rule in. Yeah.
It wasn't like an NCAA thing to or like a playoff thing. That was the Big Ten's rule. I mean, so,
and that could end up hurting.
Ohio State does not get in. They only have the commissioner to blame for that. So I mean, it's hard for me to blame Ohio State because I look back at the Clemson thing, and you don't know how many of these teams are just that don't have a shot at it, or just saying, no one's really, checking it, and no one's really going to question it because you don't want to endanger somebody.
Yeah.
And so I see it both ways. I just think they'll get the benefit of the doubt.
I think they eventually will too. But it is what it is. You said you had A&M at 5, which corresponds with where the playoff committee also has them ranked. All right, so who do you have at 4?
Right now, I had Ohio State at 4. I do think that, I do think they're one of the top 4 teams in the country. That's probably going to be it's going to be unpopular either way.
Yeah.
Because if they don't get in, there's going to be, and I'm no Ohio State lover or anything, but I'm just saying putting the best 4 teams in that I think deserve to be in. I think they're 4th.
I think they will end up there. I put Florida at 4. Honestly, I don't think Florida's going to get in because they're going to lose to Alabama in the SEC Championship game. So that's going to work itself out. I think Ohio State's going to end up getting in. Right now, I just think Florida is playing a little bit better. The combination of Trask to Pitts is one of the most deadly wide receiver quarterback combinations in the country.
It's fun. It's been fun to watch.
It has been.
And I can't imagine how much Pitts. I know he was probably already a high thought of, tight end or receiver threat in the NFL, but how much his stock probably went up.
Oh, absolutely. He's been
well. So,
And Trask, I mean, he had a good year last year. He's come back and had a very solid year again this year for them.
He's thrown like 2 interceptions, or I think he might have thrown one on Saturday, but like going into Saturday, he'd only thrown like 2 or 3 interceptions.
Yeah.
5 touchdowns or something.
Yeah, that offense reminds me a lot. It's very similar to Clemson's. I feel like deadly in the pass game. When they get the run game going, they're deadly on the end.
Weapons, yeah.
Yeah, they do. They've got weapons all over the field, and the defense, like I said, has gotten better. Each and every week. So that's why I ended up putting Florida there. Again, I think they'll end up losing to Alabama, and so they're not going to get in. I think that works itself out with Ohio State. At number 3, I'm going to go with what the committee's got. Put Clemson in the 3rd spot.
That's what I had. I had Clemson style number 3. And I think obviously with the ACC Championship coming up, in 2 weeks, I guess.
Yeah.
I think the only team. This is kind of going to be kind of weird, but like, I think Clemson would actually be given I'm not saying that like if you lose to the same team that you could get in the playoffs, but like if it's an undefeated team, and given what Ohio State, that would be an interesting decision for the committee, given the fact that Ohio State has not played as many games, and Clemson, if let's say the championship game is a close loss, would Ohio State have done enough to
get in? Yeah,
right.
It'd be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see that for sure. And if Clemson were to win a close one,
right. Well, on the same hand, would Notre Dame? What would they do with Notre Dame and Ohio State? See, I think ultimately it's going to come down to the loser of that game against Ohio State.
Yeah, and you've got Texas A&M that's right there too. That will definitely.
And of course, the SEC will make a play for 2.
For 2, if Florida were to win, they'll have 2.
Mm-hmm.
If Florida wins, they have 2. And you could see a situation if Florida wins and Clemson wins.
Yeah,
2
that could be really
2 ACC.
A head scratcher. Because then a lot of people then would say if Ohio State got in, would just be because of reputation and because you'd have to put Florida and Alabama's the only one that can really lose their championship game and probably still get in. I mean,
yeah,
Clemson could, but I just don't. I think they would have trouble. The only thing that is in Clemson's favor is it'd be a close loss to a top 5 team twice.
Yes.
Which that rarely ever happens.
Ever happens. All right. So at number 2, you have Alabama or Notre Dame?
I had Notre Dame. I just think they've looked really good all year. Alabama's just looked a little bit better on both sides. But I'll say on the offensive side of the ball, I think Notre Dame's defense is maybe better than Alabama's.
And that defense is good. I will. Now, DJ Uiagalelei definitely put up some yards and stuff against them, but
right, yeah.
But they've been solid for most of the year, and
all that yardage came mostly through the air.
Yeah, they're hard to run the ball against. That's for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, I think Notre Dame. This is one of the few years it pains me to say they are legitimately good.
Yeah.
But they are.
They actually, that Notre Dame team 2 years ago that got in the playoff that really didn't deserve to be there.
Mm-hmm.
This is a much better.
Or like the one that went to the national championship with like Te'o or whatever his name was.
Yes.
It was linebacker. That team was like fool's gold. They got.
The schedule they played that year was really sort of deceiving. Like you thought it was good, but it really, you thought they were good, but they really, really weren't. So, and they got just destroyed by Alabama in that national championship that year. But I agree. And then obviously Alabama, both of us going to have them ranked right there at the top. They've just been. That offense. I don't know, man.
Right now they look. I don't know. I don't know either if like the SEC's kind of bad too. Like I really don't know that. My suspicion is that it's a little bit of both. That Alabama's really good and the SEC's not very good. This is not a good year. It wouldn't have been a good year 2020 or no COVID or no COVID. I don't think it would have been a good year for the SEC.
Absolutely. All right. So that's our top 10, our top 3, my top 3, your top 4, all really actually your top 6 all align with the playoff committee as well. So,
and I didn't plan it like that. It was just I looked at it after the fact, and it just happened to be
like that. Yeah. A lot of good football still left. Championship weekend in a couple of weekends, so that's going to be a lot of fun. The Army-Navy game, I believe, this coming weekend, so we'll have that to talk about on Thursday. John, let's switch gears a little bit and talk a little SoCon basketball. We've seen some pretty good performances out of some Southern Conference teams so far. Some good wins already on under some of these teams' belt this year. I got a Furman, man, and the just crushed CFC, College of Charleston, on Saturday. You watched that game. Tell me what you saw.
Well, I mean, like I've been on the other end of that so many times, like when they're in the SoCon, and I could just remember, like, I was like literally, I mean, they'd have like 12 points with like, probably like at halftime, they'd have like 12 points, and College of Charleston would have like a 40-12 lead, and you're just like, I mean, like, this is so frustrating because we're, Furman's never going to be this program, like, and then to see it like go the other way, and you're just like, wow, this is bizarre. Like, am I watching the same? I mean, this is a team that the last time they met in Timmons Arena back in 2014 beat Furman by 35 on their home floor. So, like, you're just like, this totally transformed the program, and that was the year that Furman went on as the 10th seed and went on as a championship game, hit a roll there. And then they've never looked back since, recruiting-wise, coaching-wise, whatever. And so, like, I was told College of Charleston was not particularly thrilled about playing Furman prior to the game. And one of the Charleston writers was like, tweeted during the game when it was 28-10, maybe they would have rather played Richmond, today than Furman, which I thought was kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, College of Charleston's always going to be have the tradition they've had, and they're always going to be the program that's among the best, not only in South Carolina, but in mid-major basketball. So great respect for them. But it's just Furman's just good, man. They're just good.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't have the weakness for them last year was they weren't that deep, and they didn't rebound all that well. They did get out rebounded Saturday, but they were up by so many at that point that they were all 5 guys were just crashing the boards for College of Charleston at that point because, and Furman, naturally human nature is you get a little bit sloppy. And so to College of Charleston's credit, they never, there was no quit in them. But it was just, Furman's just good. I mean, like, they have a guy with nearly Jalen Slauson, who's from Somerville, almost had a triple-double. He had like 16, 10, and 9, and 3 blocks. Not a bad day.
Yeah. I mean, and then you had Bothwell with 26 points.
5 for 5 from 3 in the first half. Furman was 11 of 18 from 3-point range in the first half. So they hit like it was 4-2, and then the next thing you know, it's like 28-10, and you're like, during that run, they hit like 6 straight threes.
Yeah, ended up 47% from beyond the arc. I mean, 51, almost 52% from the floor itself. I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, we talked about on Thursday that who was it that played Greenville College and shot 80-something%?
Yeah, that like
no one does that. Like no
one does that.
You're good to shoot over 50%. If you can shoot over 50% in a game
against the legitimate, like you're not playing, these are legitimate like Division I players,
Yes,
and you're
yes.
shooting 51% against those guys. It's different than Greenville, who
Yeah,
probably,
because I mean, you look on the flip side, and CFC goes 36.5% from the floor. So
right. And a lot of that, like, as Furman's length makes a big, like, they were getting one of the things I hadn't seen them do yet this year, and one of the things that kind of shocked Charleston is they were like, once they were getting across half court, like Noah Gurley was coming out, and he was making sort of them forced to pick up their jersey because he's like, I mean, their dribble, because he's so like long,
yeah,
like you can't. He can either get a hand in like to poke the ball away, or if you pick it up, then you are in trouble, because then you have to throw over. So Furman did a lot of like denial stuff, and it really confused Charleston. And I'll be interested to see how they do against Cincinnati. I think
that's gonna be a good one.
Cincinnati was a team that's good, but they had some turnovers down the stretch against Xavier today that really cost them in that game. And I think it's a winnable game for Furman. And not that that's shocking, but some people might look at Cincinnati and think, "Whoa, it's a Bearcats, a great program, under Bob Hogan and stuff like that." But I mean, sometimes
it's definitely a very winnable game for Furman. I feel like. I mean, this is Cincinnati could have beat Xavier today. You're right. Didn't have I mean, they beat Lipscomb by 12, but it was.
Lipscomb's and the funny thing about that is Lipscomb's a very good program, but they were the ones that went to the NIT championship like 2 years ago and lost to Shaka Smart's Texas team.
Yeah.
But Lipscomb their coach is Lenny Acuff, who is a very good friend of Coach Ritchie's. So I'm sure they'll trade text messages, phone
Information.
calls.
Yeah.
And Lipscomb was in that game for a while and ended up losing by 12, I think.
Yep.
At one point, but so I'll be interested to see, what they get. It's funny to look at scheduling and how coaches do it these days, but in a year like this, I mean, you had 48 hours to prepare, a little less probably to prepare for College of Charleston, and obviously Furman's veteran group helped them. To a big 81-57 win. So
it's definitely going to be interesting. Mercer getting a win today over my alma mater, Southern Wesleyan, who Furman also beat a few days ago as well. Although SWU put up some points.
85 points.
There. Yeah, something they did not do against Furman last week. So good to see there. We got 5 unbeaten teams in the SoCon right now. Furman, Mercer, Wofford, Chattanooga, and surprisingly enough, the Citadel, all unbeaten so far this year, John.
The Citadel actually, unlike Wofford, does have a win over Division I program, that being North Carolina A&T. So, and a decent win. North Carolina A&T's, that's a pretty decent win. They're usually pretty good in their conference. I think they're in the MEAC. So, they are making the move to like the Big South at some point, I think. But good win. It makes a difference when you only, like Duger Balcom said, it makes a difference when you have a few more than 7 players,
Yeah.
Girder, but 5 undefeated teams.
Yeah, that Citadel. Sorry, I was going to say the Citadel able to come back and win that game from behind, which was rather surprising as well. Yeah, 5 unbeaten teams. You got Western Carolina and Samford with only 1 loss apiece. Samford losing to Alabama A&M, and then Western Carolina with a loss to Troy.
That Troy, that's a bizarre loss because Troy is not very good. It
was close. Hey, a 2-point loss.
It was, and I watched it, and I'm just like, this is not a good Sun Belt basketball team. Like, we're not talking football, here. Basketball is not a strength for the Sun Belt. No, I'm not taking nothing away. There are good teams. Like, I think Little Rock's pretty good. And Georgia State's really good. There are two very good teams. Lafayette's been good in the past, but traditionally they don't have the, they're not gonna garner the attention that the football conference is garnering right now.
How good's your alma mater basketball?
They're getting there.
They're getting there.
They were 2 years ago. I would have said, man, they're awful. I mean, like they were absolutely atrocious. But they made a good hire. Get this, they got a guy named I think his last name's Harcum coming in next year. He scored 2,000 points by his junior year. Like that's ridiculous. In 3 years, like to score, like he's gonna end up with like 3,000 point, probably close to 3,000 points in his career as a
in high school. Where's he coming out of?
He's from, I want to say somewhere. It's like in North Carolina, like Garner. Is that right? Garner.
Okay.
Garner, North Carolina.
I think that's near Raleigh.
It's up above Raleigh. I think near Raleigh. Yeah. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing him play. But at this point, you're hoping he doesn't flip his commitment because he is that good. Somebody's gotta be like, whoa,
snatch him up. Yeah, absolutely. So, and then how about VMI? They're 500 right now, sitting at 2-2. They've got wins over Long Island, and then
who
else was this? St. Andrews.
Who used to be in Conference Carolinas a long time ago.
Long time ago.
It's up near like Laurinburg, North Carolina.
Yeah.
Same area as a long way up there, but about an hour on the other side of Raleigh. That program, well, going back to VMI's performance against Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
That was impressive. Virginia and VMI shot the ball really well from 3-point range. That's something that they do, and they can be a headache for. You saw it, like even for nationally ranked teams. I know Furman had to go to overtime with them, or was really fortunate to beat them last year in Greenville.
Yeah, losses to Virginia Tech and Penn State. Their only losses. I mean, two good teams.
They led Penn State at halftime, I think, in that game.
And Penn State ended up coming back in the second half and winning 86-65. But I mean, they were leading Virginia Tech, or were close to it. We're right there with the Hokies for a little while in that game the other night. So,
I tell you, the kid to watch for them is Trey Bonham. Is a guy that was actually he's from a military family. His dad's, I think, in the Navy, and he was born in South Carolina, but ended up moving to, I think, Huntsville or somewhere in Alabama. And because his dad was stationed there, but he turned down, I think it was, a couple of Division I, like UAB gave him a look, I think, to go to VMI because he wanted to, follow kind of in his father's footsteps a little bit.
Yeah.
And, he's a really good player. It's I think a steal of a recruit for Dan Earl, and he played well the other night, and when he was in there. Good shooter, so
yeah, absolutely. Then you got East Tennessee State, and oddly enough, the preseason favorite to win the conference are both sitting at 1-2. East Tennessee State and UNC Greensboro. East Tennessee State with a win over Middle Tennessee the other day, and then the losses to Abilene Christian and Austin Peay.
Yeah, Austin Peay is really good. They've got their coach Matt Figger is
only a 1-point loss too.
Right, and I actually think that's the best game they've played this year. Very well could have won that game, and Austin Peay's ranked, in a number of mid-major polls. I know, like for the website I write for, we have them pretty high. I think they're like 13th or 12th or something. But yeah, Austin Peay's very good. In that conference, the whole Ohio Valley is very good in basketball.
Yes.
So, I think that's a team, East Tennessee State, that is, and that's really just getting used to playing with each other. But they still defend really well. They've had trouble scoring the basketball, but keep an eye on Ladarius Brewer. I think he's probably the best newcomer in the league. He was a double-digit scorer at Southeast Missouri State, if I'm not mistaken, which is also in the OVC, I think. So, you know, once conference play gets here, I think ETSU will be pretty good.
They've got a pretty interesting matchup on Tuesday with UNC Asheville. That'll be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. That one's at the Harrah's Cherokee Casino Center or whatever.
Right in downtown Asheville.
And very nice venue. It's where the SoCon tournament is, and should be an intriguing battle because UNC Asheville's a team that returned pretty much everyone, and now they've gotten their injured shooters back, Devon Baker and Cody Jude, who I think played 3 minutes the other day and had 6 points. So he's a good shooter and actually overcame an arm fracture.
Yeah.
And so he's a good shooter, and a guy that was kind of overlooked by a lot of people, and really worked his way to get to UNC Asheville. Kind of a neat story. But he's from West Virginia, and looking forward to seeing what that game. I think that's a really good rivalry. I mean, you obviously can't have people there, but like normally that game would, because it's not far from Johnson City. They'd have some people come, and then obviously Asheville would support their program as well, being a traditional Big South power. So, yeah, it's going to be a good game. I think what it'll come down to is I think UNC Asheville's still a bit more mature, so that might that might make the difference in that game.
Yeah. And then there's UNC Greensboro, who we talked about was the favorite according to the preseason coaches poll in the SoCon to win the conference. They get the season started off. They get the season started off with a win over Arkansas Little Rock.
That's a good win.
70. And then they followed it up with 2 straight losses to Winthrop, who's actually going to be very good this year in the Big South Conference. And then they lose to Duquesne, 81-68.
Yeah, Duquesne's actually they're in the Atlantic 10, so it's a very tough conference. But I think they won 19 games last year, and they were kind of like the team that everybody forgot about. And so Duquesne's a really good team. They've kind of been they don't really have much of a tradition as a program, but they do have is a new culture there with a new head coach. Coach, I think he's in his second year, and so I think that things are starting to change there. But you'd think UNC Greensboro being the favorite and with who they have, personnel-wise, would have won that game, and it kind of shocks me that they lose that one by double.
Yeah.
I almost think that they're kind of looking to Isaiah Miller like too much, and he's trying to do too much right now, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And he's a very good player, but
yeah,
they've got to find, like, Caleb Hunter's got to step up and be that guy. I mean, he's just got to be like, if this is his junior year, he's got to step up and make that step, like, in maturity. So that's one thing I think for them. I think if he makes that step, then I think they're a completely different basketball team.
Yeah,
he's got to be more consistent.
Interesting start to the season so far in the Southern Conference. John, let's hit up our power rankings. Let's do our first power rankings of the year for the Southern Conference basketball 2020-2021 season. We'll start at the bottom. Go with number 10. Who do you got?
Number 10. Well, unfortunately, I did put the Citadel at number 10, even though I do think they'll end up being not in that place at the end of the year. I just think right now, and I have nothing to prove this, but I think, like, even though there are some teams that really haven't played anyone, they're still, maybe like a Wofford is still better, than the Citadel. Obviously Wofford's got a big game coming up with Richmond on Monday. So, but yeah, I had to sit at number 10, not because, you know, they just. I mean, I think they had a really good win against North Carolina A&T, but the other games they should have won. So, I had them number 10.
I actually put unfortunately I put the Key Dads, even though I liked how they played against Virginia Tech, and they played, and they could have won that game. They shot a little better down the stretch and played a little bit better defense there in the final couple of minutes. They probably could have won that game, but I mean they have wins over St. Andrews and Longwood. I mean, it's not like they've really beaten anybody, and the two losses they have are to really good teams. So I mean, you expect that, but when they did play, I think they are going to be better than where I think they're going to be better than the 10th spot where I got them.
But, they got some. I really feel like he's a really good coach. Dan Earl's a really good coach.
I stuck them down there at the bottom just for the time being at the start of the year. I put ETSU at number 9. We talked about it. They at the moment they only have the one win. I think they'll end up being pretty good in the conference.
I think so. I mean,
the Austin Peay game.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, the Austin Peay game. They probably should have won that game. But it's a good, like you said, that's a good Austin Peay team. And the one that was a little weird to me was the Abilene Christian loss, and I mean that was 70-47.
Abilene is a team that conference, the Southland, which they're in, they did well last year, but like the thing that was concerning to me is not necessarily that they beat ETSU, because they had like 4 or 5 starters back from a team that 17 games last year, but to lose in that fashion, I think it was just maybe the first game jitter. There's probably a lot going into that, so I kind of gave ETSU the benefit of the doubt on that opener. Had it been a team that won like 6 games last year, I might have thought something different.
Yeah. All right, who you got at 9, John?
Number 9. I actually went with Western Carolina. That might be surprised. I don't think they'll end up there because I think they're pretty talented, but the loss to Troy was a little bit shocking. The Newberry game was a little bit too close for comfort, but I do realize, some of these schools are very good and take nothing away. But I felt like I saw them play Asheville. Asheville was playing without 2 starters and probably should have won that game if they don't miss 15 free throws. And they took it to overtime. So having said that, I put Western there. I think they'll get better. I don't think that's probably where they will stay. Number 8. I actually went with Samford. VMI. And VMI, looked good against Virginia Tech. I felt like that was their best game.
It was. I agree with you on that one.
And I think this will be I think they'll finish. They'll have a chance to finish in the top 6, which would give them a bye in the opening round of the conference tournament. I think they're that good. I just, a couple of the wins are expected there, so I just put them 8th.
This may be surprising. I tend to do this. I went with Greensboro. I went UNCG at number 8. Look, they have a good win over Little Rock. Little Rock's a very good team. Winthrop's going to end up being very good. They probably still should have won that game. I mean, you're picked favorite to win the Southern Conference. You probably should win that game.
Even though it's a good Big South school.
Yeah, and then to lose to Duquesne like they did. I know Duquesne's probably decent.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, it wasn't even close. Wasn't even close.
It did. I mean, it wasn't like, it's not I can't really argue with the fact that, their losses were. I mean, the Winthrop loss was only by, I guess, 8.
Yeah, and look, it may end up being a good loss in the long run, but still, I feel like you got to win that game.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're right.
Furman, I feel like Furman does not lose that game.
Not probably. I mean, they play them this year, so I'm
They
not gonna.
do.
So they'll have a chance to prove that point or not prove it, but like at Winthrop. So, yeah, I think Furman right now probably would win that game, but a month from now, Greensboro can be playing completely different. So
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think Greensboro will end up at the top of the conference. Just hasn't been the start necessarily that they probably would have liked to have had.
Right.
You put Western down at number 9. I went with the Catamounts at number 7. I feel like they've got a nice win over Asheville. Like you said, they had a couple guys hurt, starters hurt in that one, but still a nice win over a really good Asheville team. Got it out a win over Tennessee Tech the other day. I don't know how good they are going to be.
I mean, they're okay. I mean, they're it's a game they should win though.
Yeah, the like I said, the one head scratcher was the Troy loss.
Yeah, the Troy loss was not good. I mean, I haven't looked at but Troy is not a good. I mean, they did make the NCAA tournament for the second time in history.
Yeah, it's one of those. I don't know. I think was it
for the second time in history.
Yeah. What is it? Well, UNC Wilmington they beat at the beginning of the year. I think that's who they played. Yeah, the Seahawks out there.
Wilmington beat Troy by 23. So,
well, I'll be interested.
Funny thing is, Western beat UNC Wilmington by 22. It's like, Western's going to show up,
Yeah, exactly. They've got a nice, we talked about the Citadel's win over North Carolina A&T. They, Western has to take them on this week, so that'll be an interesting one to watch. Then they also have Virginia Commonwealth on the schedule, which VCU's been a very good team. They've still got CFC left on their non-conference schedule as well. So Western's got some games left on their schedule here in the non-conference portion that they can either prove or disprove just how good they're going to be this year. Who'd you have at number 7, John?
At number 7, I had Sanford. I thought that was a really nice bounce-back win for them after losing to Alabama A&M. I know they had went over Covenant or somebody else too, but to lose that game and then bounce back and beat a program like Belmont on the road, that was impressive to me. After the Alabama A&M game, I probably would have. I think I did have them last, just because they shouldn't be losing that game, at all. But they're talented. They got a lot of talent, and I'm looking forward, to seeing what Coach McMillan. He's one of the youngest Division I coaches in the country. What he can do. How being the coach of a powerhouse, high school program is similar to what, so Bobby Bentley, when he was at Burns, was a football coach at Burns and went to PC or whatever. It's similar. He's doing a similar thing, only it's basketball. So he was a head coach at Mountain Brook who won 8 straight state championships or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
But he's making the transition to Division I men's basketball coach at Sanford, which is, same coaching wise. It's just different,
it's a different level.
Yeah, it's a different level, different, will your style translate? And it has so far. So they're run and gun and really exciting basketball to watch. So I had Sanford's got some talented transfers too, I think his name's Richardson Maitre. He's very good. So they got some pieces to be competitive in the conference, I think.
Yeah. I agree with you there. I actually put Samford at number 6. I had them just one spot up above you did. I think that Belmont win's a really nice win for them. So I agree with you. I put Samford there. Who'd you have in the 6th spot?
In the 6th spot, I went with and I went back and forth on this one, but I went right now with East Tennessee State. I don't think they'll finish there. I just think that they're working some things out, similar to UNC Greensboro, but I think they got bukus of talent. So I think they'll finish probably in the top 3 in the SoCon by the end of the year. But I had them 6 right now, and I'm going to be intrigued because if they beat Asheville, that I'd probably jump them into the top 2 or 3 because I think it's really good. So
number 5. Let's start the top half here.
5. I went with Chattanooga. I think Chattanooga's gotten off to a very good start. The Mocs had a couple guys transfer out. One guy turned professional, but they've rebounded nicely. And Malachi Hill, I believe his name is a very good player that they've got in the program now. And, I think they've kind of been a little bit of a surprise. Trey Dooms, who came from West Virginia a couple of years ago, is really playing well. And that win over Northern Kentucky yesterday was a very good win. So I did this.
I went with the Citadel. I put the Citadel at 5, and the reason I did, look, they're undefeated. I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt here. They're 3-0. They had you say what you will about North Carolina A&T, to come back in the second half like they did and win that game from behind. This is a team that won what'd you say, 3 games or something like that all year last year.
I think they won 6 and then lost their last 19.
Yeah, I mean they didn't win a conference game at all last year. I mean, so to start off the year, they're 3-0. I mean, I just got to say a little something. I know.
Yeah, they've got some good players. I feel
like the schedule won't look like it, but I mean, 3-0 is 3-0. Honestly, no matter who you play. So I'll give them. I don't think they'll finish in the top half of the conference, but I'm gonna give them some credit for starting off undefeated like they have.
Yeah, that no doubt, and that's such a tough job that Duger Balcom has, and in some ways, he was a coach at VMI too. I think even though the Citadel's very much more and no one would say this, but like a football school, and they've had trouble. I think VMI has had more. They've had a more successful tradition, and I'm not saying that Dan Earl's job is easier at VMI. I'm just saying that they seem to be a little bit better of a program right now, or at least historically, than the Citadel. So maybe, but there's not much difference in the job. But
yeah,
they're both tough.
Yeah, at number 4, I went with the Terriers. Simply because they've played Toccoa Falls and Carver. That's the only 2 teams they've played. Neither one of them are Division I opponents. Look, Wofford's going to be good. They're going to be one of the best teams in the conference. I have no doubt about that. We'll find out this week when they play.
Richmond. We'll find out Monday. When they play Richmond. I actually had I had Wofford 4th. So
okay, so we agree there.
Yeah. So I just don't know enough about them yet.
Yeah.
I know that Storm Murphy's probably, and the SoCon's got some very good point guards. If he's not the best, he's definitely the second best or best in the SoCon, and which would still put him one of the best probably in mid-major basketball. I think, obviously Isaiah Miller at UNCG is Isaiah Miller, so he's probably the best player in mid-major basketball. So if you're saying Storm Murphy's second, then that's not all that
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah, I agree with you there. All right, John, top three here. Who you got in the third spot?
I just got UNC Greensboro right now. I think they're very good. They went out and challenged themselves, which I think is, impressive.
Yeah.
To go play the caliber of opponents they did, and should have had a game against Louisville, but Louisville had to cancel because of COVID. So that would have been an interesting matchup to see, but challenged themselves with Little Rock and three good teams, Winthrop and Duquesne. So I still think they're pretty good. I don't think they're shooting the ball very well right now. And
well, didn't their head coach even talk about that?
Yeah, at the preseason media day, he was, Coach Miller was like, well, quite frankly, we've got to shoot the ball better. So that kind of bared out a little bit in the two games. But I'll tell you, or the three games. But I like Hayden Koval, the center. He can step out and shoot. Jared Hensley's a good shooter. Allegri is another good shooter. So they've got more perimeter threats than they've had in the past.
I put the Mocs at number 3. I like the win over Northern Kentucky. Obviously, they beat Tennessee Tech as well. They're undefeated. So I'm going to put the Mocs up at the third spot. All right, John, top 2, we probably do have the same here. My second spot, I really like what Mercer's been doing this year so far. I've got the Bears. They've got a nice win over Georgia Tech. That's a ACC basketball school. Georgia Tech may not be one of the big name ACC basketball schools, still an ACC institution there. Nice win over Georgia State as well. So I like what they're doing down there in Macon.
Yeah, 2 double-digit wins over Georgia State and Georgia Tech. I had them number 2 as well, but a good win today. And I mean, a lot of people won't say it, but Southern Wesleyan's a very good program.
Yeah.
And a team that will, sort of be pesky at times. They were certainly that way for Furman, and a good win today. And I think, Mercer's got the best win of anyone in the league right now, the win over Georgia Tech. I feel like Neftali Alvarez, the point guard, I think they're reigning SoCon player of the week.
Hey, and we can say this, Georgia Tech just beat Kentucky today, so.
Oh, yeah. Without question, Mercer is very good. So, I had the number 2.
And that leaves Furman. That leaves Furman number 1, John.
And I'm not being a homer or anything. It's just the reality of it is
they're good.
I mean, they're good. I mean, and not I've been so. I guess it's hard for me to actually hear me saying those words as bad as Furman has been. Prior to, on my going back to my childhood, they were just. They were atrocious. But the last 6 years, they've really made the climb as a mid-major, and they're at that level now where you can just say, admittedly, unbiased, they're good. They are legitimately good, and I didn't know how they would respond to the College of Charleston game. I certainly didn't expect them to win like that. I thought, they'd probably win, but I didn't expect that. College of Charleston is so good. They're just a name program in the state. In some years, they've been the best program in the state. So to get a win like that and the way they did it was impressive. Absolutely.
Well, John, hey, it's been a great football season so far, even though, with COVID and everything, it's been a weird one. Had a great football season. Basketball season's already off to a really fantastic start. And even right here in the Southern Conference, right here locally, they're, a lot of these SoCon teams playing well right now too. So it's going to be a fun year in men's basketball here in the, all over the country and in the Southern Conference as well. So, we'll have some things to talk about on Thursday. Obviously, you mentioned Wofford's got Richmond. Furman a nice game coming up against Cincinnati on Wednesday. So a couple of basketball games that we can talk about on Thursday before this next weekend, getting ready for some more football.
Yeah, man, looking forward to it. I can't wait. And so we'll get back to it on Thursday.
Sounds good, my friend. This has been another episode of The Spread. Thanks for listening to The Spread podcast here on Podbean. Head on over to thespreadfootball.com and check out all of our weekly articles and catch replays of each show on the podcast page. Also, head on over to social media and follow us on Facebook at The Spread with Cameron Tarrant and on Twitter at The Spread Podcast. We'll catch you next time.